Good afternoon, everyone. Let's begin. How is it going? So, I'm just starting by putting just a few scribbles down onto the paper just to kind of get me going. I don't know if you can see any of that, but it's kind of something I've been wanting to put together for a while. So in my story that I'm working on, I have these two let me start over. So two characters that are kind of the center of the story that I'm currently hard at work on, are a very obvious pairing, and I really like their story of their relationship, and it's something that I really want to focus on for this piece. So that's what I'll be doing today. Problem is getting my angles and everything right. Foot down there. I was going to draw them moving, and I think I still kind of want to, honestly. I don't know if I mentioned to you that I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV, and it was a really great opportunity for me to, kind of branch out into a new game and explore my characters in a very different world, in a very different setting. So now I just want to draw them. As they actually are, not just in that game, not just in the context of that game, but the characters that I created, the ones who are in my story. this relationship that I'm talking about here is between the main character and his best friend and partner. And I have been thinking lately a lot about the story and how it's progressing. So, one thing that I think I mentioned last week is that I will be getting the inking done once I actually am in a good place with the basic sketches, the basic pencil drawing. So, there's still a lot of work left to do on that before I'm going to show that off again. So, but it's happening. Makes no sense being the way it is now, with the leg being where it is. Heads up a little higher. So the funny thing about drawing people, actually moving and doing stuff, when a lot of times it's, sometimes easier to just have them standing still, is that you'll be amending the piece as you go. At least for me, I am. So constantly saying, you know what, this pose that is happening right here looks better than the one I had planned, so let's just go with that, which is exactly what I'm doing. So I don't know if anybody else goes through that, but I definitely do. So we'll just say that. This is something that I do on a regular basis. So I'm also showing you right now really my full pencil process, because you can see this is what I literally go through whenever I start drawing. Start just by laying down some basic pose, getting the characters in their positions just by a gesture of, major action lines and things like that. Or I try to get a little bit of that in. This down here, looking at the foot, it's kind of an awkward thing. So let's really take a look at what's happening down here. So, got the leg, we'll end it at a stump right there. This is roughly where the ankle is. Actually, probably more up here. Because obviously this leg is bent. And when we think about people who are walking, when this leg is bent, we're kind of at the... especially bent in this kind of angle, where just past the crossover of the legs. And it looks like this leg is probably going up. So I'm going to have to really pay attention to what's happening here with this leg. I can see that giving me just some problems here. And one thing I definitely do not want to do is try to shortcut it by not drawing it, by putting something in the way to obscure it. I like the idea of challenging myself as an artist to, really plan through, but also really work through a lot of the challenges. I see it as a really great opportunity to show my skill as an artist by really working through these issues as they come up. So one thing we could do is, instead of putting it there, we can say that his leg is a little more bent and we're just out of its crossover, so which means this foot is way back here. So here's more of the ground. Or just by having them stand still, which I don't really want them to do. I want to show them moving. Which means this leg may need to go up just a little higher. A little bit of the heel there. It's looking kind of problematic. Oh, this foot is going to give me some problems. I can see it. I'm going to work this out. First of all, what is happening right up in here? I think what's really throwing me off is leg thickness and... So let's do this. This will help angle foot where it needs to be. Alright, that'll do. You know what? No, I don't like that at all. That just still looks awkward. So we're gonna try something different. Let's have them match pace, which I think is what I was trying to do initially. So this leg is too close. It's almost as though they don't have personal space, even though they're all wrapped around each other like that. Alright, there we go. That's much better. Obviously, I do recommend using reference, but this is a pose that I've drawn more than enough times. I figured I'd had it by now. Apparently I just needed a little extra work, but here it is. Yeah, that looks good. Always do this just so I know where the rest of the body sits. Okay. Alright, let's get back to everything else now. So, getting these ears in here. Stick with major body features now. We're talking muscles. We'll fix that hand a little later. I'm not sure I like that in a fist. It's just a little extra aggressive for no reason, I think. Actually, let's work on that now, shall we? There we go. Of course, now our bigger guy right here has got kind of a swagger thing going on, which, you know what? I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I like it. So we'll keep that as is. I like that. All right, so let's put some real detail on these two here, and while we're doing that, we're going to consider what they're wearing. So right off the bat, I can tell you right now that our shorter character here tends to favor lighter, looser, more flowy clothing. So we'll put him in a cardigan. This very loose shirt here. And V-neck. T-shirt on under it, and a necklace. Do that. T-shirt underneath that, so there's that. And sleeves, I think should be... Well, for what he's wearing, I think we'll do something fun for the sleeves here. That arm is a little weird. There we go. Alright. That makes a little more sense. I do always tend to draw through character elements so that I can actually see what's going on under them, so that, you know, lines like this are continuous and they don't just seem to just stop right here where it gets concealed and restart again. I actually go right through it just to make sure that it's one continuous line, and allows me to really plan out things like wrinkles and other clothing elements, other body pose elements, so it's all there. What do I want him wearing? You know, honestly, just a... slim pair of pants. Skinny fingers. It's doing too much with that thumb. Hold on a minute. Okay, here we go. And we're just gonna pull his hair back. So this character right here is the sorcerer, the main character of my story. And if you've seen my other videos of me drawing him, then you know he's got a lot of hair. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw all of this hair back here. So I just pulled it back. This is actually a style that I usually put my hair up in, so I don't have nearly as much hair as him, but you know, I do employ this style from time to time. It's just a headband. It goes right behind the ears and just pulls the hair away from the face. So this nice big cloud of hair behind him. And we'll do something fun with that when we go to ink this piece. Now, for our other character. He tends to wear more tailored clothing. Why? Because he can afford to. No. It's just his look. And you know, obviously all characters have their own look, so that's what we stick with. His shirt. Pants obviously have this deep crease in them. Too much in the way of wrinkles, very light wrinkles, very slacks. Belt buckles kind of confound me, but you know, we can actually do those with very simple shapes. So obviously we need to know where his hips sit, which are probably going to be right around here. He's a very stylish person, so we're going to just very simple rectangle. Do that to gesture in some wrinkles there, some simple fabric folds, and then give him a nice high collar there. He walks with his shirt open. There we go. And, you know, I was thinking about giving him a jacket. I don't know. He doesn't have as much hair. Now, normally when I draw this character here, his hair actually is often in a low ponytail. It's a little looser in texture than this guy's here. Still kind of curly, but oftentimes can be straight. And I usually have it done up something like this. Thinking about doing something different because honestly you won't really from this angle where we are, you won't really see so much of his low ponytail, so we'll just kind of keep that just like that. All right. Do a V-neck. Let's bring that down just a little more. So our guy here is trying to, you know, just what he's wearing. So, all right, we have that. So we have our two lovers. An artist, like a painter, and a musician. All right. So that is that. So let me get prepared to like really lay in the thicker lines that I'll actually be using as my guide when I go to ink. So I'm going to take a quick break to find the rest of my materials, and then we'll be right back. All right, I'm back. so I decided to just go ahead and gather up all the rest of the things that I'm going to need for this piece. Oh. There we go. Now I'm on the right microphone. Okay. Gathering up all the rest of the materials that I'm going to need for this piece, just so we can go straight into it. So I've got my mechanical pencil here, which I do use when I'm going over my lighter pencil lines, just so I could really drill in on those details. So let's just go right on into it. I don't need to do too much. Just to get all of this in here. So these lines that I'm drawing right now are what I will use when I'm doing my inking. Oh, I forgot to draw my dude's facial hair. There we go. Just to get that in there. All right, perfect. And my guy here, the sideburns. Like I said, we don't really have to do too much here. Just need to get those basic lines down with our basic shapes. Maybe too much in there. There we go. Let's try that again a little later. And all we're doing is breaking pencil lead, is getting in here to do this to these lines. We want to make them stand out a little bit so that when I do go over them with my ink, I know exactly what I'm doing. I can see my lines, the more intentional ones, the ones I want to keep. Okay. One thing I've always loved to do when it came to drawing characters with a lot of hair was, oh, you're leaning on something. I'll just have a bit of your hair just peeking out right here. It's not always necessary. It's not really a thing, so we can just leave that as is. This material of his sweater is a little softer, and so forms fold lines a little easier because of its more flowy nature. I love drawing with a shaky hand whenever I have to draw clothing. For me, it's kind of a shorthand for gesturing in and really putting in the movement of the material that the characters are wearing. Gives it shape. Get those wrinkles that we want. These movement lines are very easy and they just fall right into place. So do that. We think of this phase as kind of like the pre-inking post-pencil phase. So even in my comics work, this is what I'll be doing. I'll actually be going over all my light lines, which often amount to just gestural lines. Oops, this is too much let out. Put his belt loops in. Going over all my my lighter pencil lines, and doing this just to give them the definition that they need, so that when I do go to ink them, hey, those lines are standing out. I can actually see them more clearly. That crease line there, and it continues down there. Got that going on. Just a little under design on his shoes there. Okay. So the thing I want to focus on right now is their face. Are their faces. The things I want to focus on right now are their faces. So let me go ahead and get my pencils here. Because I need my pencils to be sharp for what I'm about to do. I still need a lighter line, but it's gotta have a point. So we're gonna say this is where they're looking. And it's so funny because when I discovered doing this, like mapping out the face in this way, I'm like, maybe I'll use it. I don't know. And it turns out I use it all the time. So I gotta move this before I knock it over. Just my little cup of water so that I can wash my brushes. Alright. Let's draw my noses in. So when I'm drawing noses, I start with a big circle. Well, not a big circle, but I always start with a circle. And just add a couple little wings to it. We can kind of do something similar with the lips. I don't want a whole big thing for the lips. This character doesn't really have, I mean, his lips are kind of thick, but they're not like really big, so. So, got the face in there. I'll bring the camera over so you can actually see it a little better. Alright, so next we gotta put in his guy's face right here. So that's the face of the sorcerer. We'll just put that hairline back in there. And then his dude. Just saw his eyebrows doing a thing, so I decided to go with it. He's got nice thick eyebrows. The mouth is doing things that I don't like. Let's fix that. So next, I'm gonna bring his hairline draw in some of these features. Lighter eyebrows. Fix that up a little bit. There we go. Okay. All right. So I'm pretty happy with the way this is looking right now. Let me just go in here with deeper lines here. Break another point. Okay. There we go. And what I want to do is... I actually do kind of want to get a shot of this because I really like the way this, their faces came out. So give me just a moment while I do this thing. I really, really love these two characters. Everything that I end up doing with them, I always really, really enjoy. And I get very excited whenever I get to draw them. So that's why I decided that, you know, of all the stories that I want to tell, theirs is the one that I really want to focus on the most, especially in my comic story. Only because I feel like they are telling the story of the kind of romance that, you know, I really believe in. You know, these two people who are just drawn together and are always meant to be together. That's kind of my thing. I just love that kind of a soulmate story, and I really believe in that. So, alright. So I've broken enough points here. Breaking points again. And jeans. So they can bunch up a little bit down here. So I'll let you see what I've got going on. Smaller legs, but his hips are like somewhere up here. So let's narrow that up a little bit. Okay, there we go. That's better. That looks much better than what I had going on originally here. And I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna get in here, just like that. Got my brush, we'll do that. Oh, that's right, his feet down here. That going on back there. Okay. Draw the rest of his shirt in there. Let's go clean that up a little bit. Just to really get that detail in where I need it to be. Alright, there we go. Next, we're gonna ink. Apply some ink to this. Now I don't want to go crazy with the inking because, as you well know, I ink with a brush and it's very easy to go a little overboard with that. I do not want to do that this time around. This is just a fun piece, but you know, I kind of may want to do other things with it. So, hold on a minute. Something I'm seeing up here that I don't like. Homeboy's nose is never that big. Alright, there we go. That's much better. So let's go ahead into the inking. Hi. Yes, you know what? I do actually use micron pens, but I haven't found where I put them after I moved. So I really have no idea where they are. So instead, I just use brushes, and it works for me. And it's so funny because I really like the micron pens, especially when I have to do really fine details that the brushes just are not at all suited to. It just doesn't make sense at all for me to use those when, you know, they're just gonna bungle up whatever type of detail I'm putting in there. So like when I get in here to, let me show you. When I get in here to draw the face, I'm not gonna use those. I'm not gonna use brushes. Well, you know what? I'm kind of hoping that maybe mine will turn up at some point. So, that's gonna be hilarious if I do. And you know what? There's only so many places where I really would have put them. And I've looked in those places and I'm just not seeing those. So it's probably in some box somewhere that I just haven't actually gotten to look to yet. But no, I'm gonna do some things here like I said, any detail like this, that eyebrow, the eyes, whatever's going on there, not using a brush for that. I've done that before. Not necessarily to disastrous results, just not what I wanted to have happen. Alright, so let's see. What brush do I want to use first? I want to kind of get the main details in. Oops, there we go. I want to get these main details in so that it'll make it a little easier to do everything else that I need to do. Oh, there's my main brush. Okay, I think I've got it. So what I'm gonna do is I've got my ink here all ready to go. No, I'm missing a brush. I think I'm missing a brush. Am I missing a brush? I feel like I am. Give me a minute. No, I guess. Yes, I am. There it is. What I'm going to do is I am going to start with some of these really fine textural details of, you know, the folds in the clothing, and just kind of get all that in there. And it'll give me something to work with. It'll really start to lay in the piece, and we'll start from the top down. Here comes the dangerous part about working with an open bottle of ink. It is an open bottle of ink, and any sudden movement can have ink all over your workspace. And instead of doing that, we're going to move that off to the side where I don't have the potential to knock it over. Alright, so we're going to start way up here. And we'll just do that. We'll start with him at the top because he's the tallest here in this scene. And the funny thing about certain elements of a drawing is, especially when it comes to hair, let's phrase this around that. When it comes to drawing characters with, you know, a lot of long hair, you can really have that hair doing anything. Absolutely anything. So no matter what you've drawn down, as long as you're following the basic shape of your pencils, you're in good shape. And depending on, you know, the texture of the hair and how you've drawn that in, it's just everything else that tends to be a little more challenging. And look at me, drawing the face features with a brush. Even though I said I wasn't going to. Honestly, I took a chance and I went with it. And honestly, I like the way that's looking right now. So maybe I just needed more practice. So that's alright. So we're going to get in here. And our guy with his sideburns. And we don't really have to draw the headband either. We barely even have to touch the hair because I'm going to do something different with the hair because of its wild, almost tangly texture. this up on my elbow. Let's get the rest of his face in here. And we're just gonna drop in some brush strokes there for his goatee. And I'm really liking what's happening right now with his little mustache. Shaky hands. Here we go. There's a little too much ink on the brush there. Like I said, I like what was happening so far with the brush. And honestly, I think that this is a piece that's of a size where I can get away with doing these details in the brush. Which has ever been my goal, really, to actually do this way. So, you know, I'm happy that this is turning out as well as it is. And put that in there. I use brushes simply because I can vary the line weight on my own without going for a different tool. You know, I don't have to go for a specific weight of micron pen. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, that's always been my goal. When I started using a brush, this was exactly what I had intended to do. Yeah. There we go. Get that on out of there. All right. Yeah, I'm not interested in the that. I'm not interested in the that. Okay. So let's just get in here. And we'll do that. Now, it is super easy to, as I mentioned before, just kind of overdo it with line work. And I tend to swing my hand and my arm in these wide arcs. So I do have to be pretty careful about that when I'm getting this in here. But with a little practice and a little patience, and I've got my arm resting on the paper, and that's because the paper is at a certain angle, that's not gonna help me. to have my arm resting somewhere. What I want to do you know what, I can work with that, is this. That little blip right there, that's a wrinkle. And there it is. Oh, me and these unsteady arms. This is why I tend to hold my hand with my other hand. Alright, so we're going to start it there. Bring that down just like that, and that's it. I don't need to go any further than that. Right up in here, we're going to get there. Okay, we've got that. Okay. Oops, let's move this out of the way too. We're just gonna do that. I try not to be too scared of, making bold lines just to kind of get in there, but sometimes I have to pair that with just actually resting my arm on something. Oh, I forgot his mouth. Let's not do that. That's perfect. I love it. Okay. Yeah, seriously. Gets crazy. Just want to do that. Pull out some wrinkles there. Okay. Go back to the top of our friend's shirt here. light a stroke as possible. Come down. Or we'll go up. However it needs to happen. Some more folds up in here. There we go. Get there. All right, now most importantly is our hero's shirt over here. And we'll do something like this, just to kind of hint at the links of his chain. I'm always about, trying to get in texture wherever possible, so here we go. Okay. Go. Got that going on there. All right, now we can come in down here. Got that. It's a little pocket. Let's get in up here. I really, really wish you could see how close my face is to the camera, but I can definitely say that I'm glad that my face is not in the shot. In earlier videos, it was really a problem. Because I always like to get kind of close to my work when I'm drawing. And I ended up with my face or my head, my hair, somehow in too many shots, and it just ruined the whole experience for me personally. Okay, so next we want another pocket here. Go. Do something like that. Okay. Okay. do that. Oh, let's not forget this arm over here. Whenever I need to steady my hand, I do apply a lot of pressure. And it turns into some really great lines. So... so that's that. I want to get his hand in here. Got our belt loops. Let's get more ink on this brush. Dun, dun, dun. And because it's a crease, that's it. That's all I need to do. Whew! Alright. We are getting through this. I love it. Okay. It's actually looking really, really good. I mean, you know, not that I was at all surprised about that. It is me, after all. But, you know, I do amaze myself when I'm drawing. Lots of, you know, happy accidents turn into really great opportunities to do more with the piece. So I am now down here in the legs and shoes, just so you can see what's going on here. Hello, T-Con. Thank you for joining us. I'm a little quiet only because I like to concentrate on what I'm doing, but, you know, if I see conversation and action going on in chat, obviously I will say hello to anyone who stops by, so hello to you. Can I doodle? Is that reference to a particular thing you want me to do, or is that an app, or how am I answering this question? Aha. Well, I'll have to check that out when I get a chance. Might just be a broad question. Hello, Fanciful. Hi, welcome to the show. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate the follow. As always welcome. So, as far as doodle, as in, like, if you mean, oh, hey, do you do these little drawings? I can do that. I do that from time to time, only when I'm, when it's just something I just want to get out of myself. You know, maybe I just want to do, like, a really quick throw-together drawing. I'm usually happy to just kind of go ahead and just not turn it into a giant production. And then sometimes I really want to just do this. When do I stream? I stream every Saturday at 1 p.m. So I started this about an hour and some change ago. And I try to draw, I try to put together just a few things that I really want to get down. So today I'm just working on this piece. I can usually finish a full piece from start to finish. So that's pencils to inks to actual colors. And, maybe about 2.5 hours. And that's just, with time for me to take a break and me to come back and if I have to look for stuff. But I'm usually here every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, in case you're in another time zone. So if you're interested in stopping by again, that I can tell you I will be doing that. My schedule may change soon-ish. I'm not entirely sure. There's some other things going on in the background that I will have to make adjustments for. I try to stick to only one piece at a time per stream. A couple of streams ago, I was able to kind of knock together two, but that's not really going to be me finishing anything if I'm going to be working on two, since I'm usually only on for maybe 2 to 3 hours at most. But usually I try to keep it to one piece at a time, just so I can have time to really devote all my energy to really finishing it. Perfect. You know what? I would love to see you stop by again. It would actually mean a whole lot to me. So thank you for coming to hang out with me today. Alright, so I guess... And when it comes to me getting a piece from pencil to inks to colors, because I use watercolor, it does take a little bit of time for me to wait for the inks to dry before I can really go into everything else that I want to do. So sometimes it takes a couple of sessions to finish a piece. Yes, this is ink that I'm using. I've got a whole brush and my little bottle of ink right here. Been playing around in inks for, just a few years now. Nothing, I really wish I'd gotten more practice of it. Thank you. Yeah, I've had a little bit of practice with it. I have a very unsteady hand, so it does take me a while to, really be able to relax enough to actually get the piece and the inks down the way I want them to. But once they go down, I'm pretty happy with the way they look. I try to keep them as clean as possible while my hand is shaking all over the place. It's nothing big. It's just I have unsteady hands. Get in there, and I want to do that with the hair. Okay, so as I did mention, there is something I do want to do with the hand. Yeah, only a few years I've been doing this, so maybe 2 or 3 or something. So I'm not as far off as I'd like to be right now, but that's only because I recently started using inks as a brush. So I tried to do it with a regular dip pen, and it just never came out the way I wanted it to. I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I live now in Columbus, Ohio. Alright, so now that that's there, what I'm going to do is hopefully not screw this up too much. But I should be fine to get in what I'm trying to do here. Oops. Okay, there we go. Welcome. So normally what I will do after I've gotten all of my little lines in there is I will go ahead with a thicker brush just to bolden the outline. I don't want to do that with this right now. Yeah, there's a lot of time to stick with one thing. I love the more fluid media, watercolors, inks. Those I have been using for a while now, and I just love the way they work, so I don't really have much of an interest in, getting into other things, unless I want to experiment with something. I have gone into oils, and I do like oils a lot, but it really doesn't do what I wanted to do with ink, so I stick with what I know and what I feel most comfortable with. So what I'm doing right now is going into the hair. And I can really put in some really great texture with the way the brush is. And can just kind of play around with it just like this. You know what? Why don't you send me that as a private message, and then I'll definitely check it out when I get the chance. You know what? Kindergartners with finger paints is a really great way to start. And the most important thing is that you're just doing it. So that's how I go by everything. I say, you know what? I just kind of want to play around with things and just experiment. And so I do. So, I mean, hey, it works. Because you're still learning. And you may as well be gentle with yourself about that. So that's him, and now we're going to get this guy back here. I'm leaving in some space to do highlights when it's time to do that. Perfect. You know what? I was when I started, I had my art teachers tell me that maybe you should maybe you should look at adding color to your pieces. And I was never really about adding color to any of my pieces. I always stuck with pencil, and then I went with pens. And so, perfect. Thank you. And once I started getting into color, I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of fun. This is really cool. I think I can do this more. And so I started experimenting more with it. So, we all reach those points at different times. So, like I said, just give yourself enough patience to really explore and experiment and just play around with, what you're doing. You don't have to put together some big masterpiece in order to play around with a particular type of media that is new to you. You can just, literally blitz around and putz around with a few things so that you can really see what it can do. And I highly recommend doing that, especially when starting off with something new. Thanks for the links, y'all. I will totally check those out when I am done here. For now, let's continue Now, normally, I would like to do some kind of fun things in the background. I don't think that anything is really standing out to me as something that I want to do, so we'll just keep the background just as white space. But I do want to give them some ground. So let me show you what I'm doing down here. Just pull it off that way. You know what? I used to be the exact same way, Fanciful. I often take myself very, very seriously when it comes to my drawings. And so when I end up doing something that I don't like, instead of throwing it out outright, I usually just set it aside. And that gives me enough time to really think about what I've done. Maybe I'll come back to it, maybe I won't. But in those occasions when I do, I can look at it and say, oh, you know what? I think this is what I was trying to do. And it turns out, you know, I just needed some time to actually get to that point. Like, maybe my mind wasn't there with what it was I was trying to do. Because I don't really think it's a matter of skill. I think it's a matter of preparedness, a type of readiness, and, you know, the ability to just kind of play with things and, you know, how well in unity your hand and your mind are when you're drawing something. So I do believe in that. But, you know, sometimes you're just not there. Sometimes you really are just having a bad day. Oh, you know what? I know all about I have a few of those myself, so I am totally there with you with the unfinished projects. Absolutely. You know, I think I want a little more back there. And we'll... do a little more up in there. Yeah, exactly. Comparing myself, you know, it doesn't really help as much as we think it does. It turns into, you know, kind of wishing we were as good as someone that we know. I have a friend of mine who is also an artist. Really, really great work. He's much more of a cartoonist, I would say, much more than I am. You know, I can do that, but he lives in a more freer, more cartoony style. And I think his work is absolutely excellent. And even he ends up saying that, you know what, I'm not at this point where I feel I can, you know, share my work with these professionals here. And I'm just like, you know what, I guess we're all in that same boat. Hello, welcome. Hello, welcome. So, take care, T-Con. I'll see you soon. Exactly, Nick. It's sometimes it just something will just happen, and you'll say, you know what, this is what I was trying to do. It's true. It absolutely is true. And those moments when you really start to see your work coming together, where you can say, oh, I really love the way this looks. It's such a profound statement to make about our work that we really love what we've done. And it doesn't happen that often. So when it does, I take those moments and I do celebrate them. So kind of like right now, like this, I'm going to put the cap on my ink here. I talk with my hands, and this is bound to be an accident. Like this piece right here, I can look at this right now and say that I'm really excited about what this looks like right now. And I can't wait to really start getting into the coloring part. So what I want to do with that, before I start coloring anything, I want to really just take a moment to just kind of consider what the characters are wearing and what their primary colors are. You know, the types of things that you want to be their signature colors, their signature looks. As we have to really we have to really pair that to skin tone, hair color, the rest of the scene. In this case, there is not really a rest of the scene. It's really just my two characters, walking together, wrapped around each other. But it really does turn into really mapping out and planning out those colorways so that you're not just putting together a whole bunch of mud, so that you have the right things or the right colors are accenting the right person. So that's going to be kind of challenging because both these characters, whenever I've drawn them, wear a lot of blue and purple, and they already have dark skin. So it turns into kind of this whole muddy looking thing. So one of the great things that I do love about using watercolors is the ability to thin those colors down so that everything kind of blends, and you can pump up the intensity as you need to. You can mix the colors as you need to so that, they don't look quite so washed out, but it still retains, each color still retains its own identity. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a quick break again, and I'm going to clear out my cup here, my wash cup, and then I'm going to get us ready to go in with some color. So quick break, I will be right back. Okay, and I'm back. Yeah, fanciful. I've actually gone through the same problem. So, yeah, believe me, I am right there with you. Okay, so what I try to be careful of at this phase is obviously this is our cleanup step, where we get to clean up a lot of these pencil lines, but I really need to be careful with that. I have smeared ink before while doing this, so, the ink may feel dry to the touch, but when you're taking basically a stick of rubber and you're rubbing over it, you will smear it. So I usually like to either go over with a more detailed eraser, which is what I've got right here, like something like this, or mechanical eraser, something like that, something where you're not really getting a lot of broad strokes, and you just want to be very specific about where you're using it. Because you don't want to smear any ink over what you've already put down, and it's very easy to do so, especially fresh off of the drawing, fresh out of the inking phase. Just moments ago I put this ink down, so that's a really great way to do that. I would love to actually start drawing digitally, and once I have a tablet in mind that I want to use. Once I actually get that and I actually start playing around with that, I will do some work with that, and I'll definitely stream that too, so you can actually see my work, how I do that. But yeah, that's an actually really fantastic idea. Well, no, not maybe an original, but like obviously something where you're probably going to reproduce it, especially digitally. I can totally see myself doing that. I have known a few artists to do exactly that. And the other thing about being careful with your eraser cleanup is that sometimes, even if you're not smearing it, the eraser itself can actually just kind of remove the integrity and the weight of your lines. And you definitely want to watch out for that. It'll, wear away that top layer of ink, so, they're not as bold as you'd like them. Now, one thing that I think I had mentioned last week that I want to start doing is absolutely scanning my work when it gets to this phase. So that, I can just, if something goes wrong, I can totally just go ahead and reprint up a new piece. But I do want to kind of just go right into it. And I also have a brush here, 2-inch, to kind of clean up any of the pencil, or the eraser leavings, so that I'm not, wiping my hand over the thing. Digital backups are amazing. Yes, absolutely. And I'm all for them. Whatever protects your work so that you can do more with it. And, I may want to play around with this piece digitally itself. I get it to this really great spot here with inking, and I may just say, you know what? Maybe I want to play around with digital coloring. So that'll give me that opportunity to do that too. And because it's a black and white drawing, it's so easy to just kind of do. Yes. So that's a lesson that I learned the hard way, fanciful. Like using a brush so that I'm not smearing anything with my hand. That's a hard-learned lesson. Whatever you end up coming up with to help your work, definitely just go with it. Yeah. I would love to do. When I started drawing, I had decided that I want to do backgrounds. I want to be a background artist. And I drew backgrounds, and I'm like, this is not really interesting. It's not really as much fun as I thought it would be. I just needed more practice with it, I think, and more work with it. So, maybe we'll do a full background image. Not necessarily a background image, but, like a landscape or something at some point, or a full scene, and I can really show you, my process and what I go through. But, yes, sometimes getting in to draw those background scenes can be a little challenging. Not always prepared for it. Sometimes when I'm just drawing for the sake of drawing, I'm not really looking to do a whole scene. I'm not trying to throw a whole everything together. And then sometimes, whatever I'm putting together really needs context. Room A, Street B, exactly. It can just be that. And that's why I just put this little ground here in here. I don't really know what else I wanted to do with the background. I had kind of an idea, but I'm like, maybe I won't. I'll just kind of leave it as is. Only because I just wanted to put these two together in this scene. I had no vision, really, of a whole background spot that I wanted to do. And backgrounds do end up taking, a lot of extra time to really plan, first of all, because obviously you want to make sure that what you're doing that you're setting the stage appropriately. There's going to be other elements in a bedroom or on a street somewhere. Are there other people in that scene? Are there, what other props need to be in that room or, on the street so that the scene makes sense? Because when you're just doing characters like this is just a character drawing. When you're drawing backgrounds, that becomes a full scene. Even if you're just, doing a pencil drawing or a pen and ink drawing, that becomes a full production. Much more than what I want to really put into right now, aside from just, hey, I want to paint this. And that's just not what I want to do today. I don't want to do a full scene. I just want to paint. So now, I suppose I can go in here with my plastic eraser here. Oh, really? So, you had to draw the sky. What did you do? I want to know. How did you get that sky in there? You just made it blue. So one thing that I had a class that when I was in art school, we went outside to draw. We actually started with just kind of, we were experimenting with ink for this class, and we started off with doing our own version of Starry Night. So we're just taking strokes of lines in ink, and it's just really layering texture and layering a look, layering shapes with just using ink. And then after that, we went out onto the campus just to find a different area where we can actually draw in life, and then we're still using that same technique with the ink. We're just drawing in the lines and the shapes. So it really turns into, how do you want to show the sky, the background? So for some of us, it was, I'll just texture in some clouds with this ink here. And another way, you could texture in the background and leave the clouds just kind of popping out as they were. Or you could texture the whole thing and just really give this really great look of just different cross-hatching lines everywhere. And, there's like, with those different ways of doing that, you end up thinking of different ways of drawing shapes, and especially in wide fields of, solid color or scopes, you can do so much with them that it doesn't always, it's not always going to be, maybe just how you paint the sky. You can do a few different things with it. So that was, that was what that was for me. Although, for real, I think I probably would just gone with a blue sky as well. Had the assignment not been, we're doing it this way, try to draw this in this way. Okay, so those are my lines, and now we get to think about how we're going to, or what we're going to put these characters in. So I think I want my guy here in a green shirt with maybe some dark gray pants. And then my guy here is probably going to be in a light gray sweater. Let's say with blue jeans or maybe black pants. I'm not entirely sure. And a blue shirt. Maybe a dark blue shirt. Got some things I can think about. So let's go ahead and get our paints going. You know what? There's a lot to be said of just simple white dots on a black background. I have done that myself in a few production pieces that I've done, so it totally works. Well, and that's the thing when it comes to, being a professional artist. You're a professional. The idea is, indeed, to reduce labor, minimize the amount of work that you're actually putting into the piece, and just create the piece as you need it to be. You don't have to overdo it and oversell the thing. You can just say, well, you know what, let's reduce the amount of work that I'm putting into this, and that totally makes a lot of sense. All right, so the shade of green that I want, I'm going to fill a well with some yellow. Got my palette right here. Got one of these things that I use a lot. Love this thing. I'm going to fill one of our little wells with some yellow. And I actually use Blick's liquid watercolor. I love using these things. It saves my life so much just to be able to use that, and then I can just mix it with however much water or other colors as I need to. And then I'm going to go into, I'm going to add some green to that. Just because I need it to be green. And where is my, there it is. There's my eyedropper. Got my eyedropper here so I can pick up some water. Drop that in there. And now I'm going to take my brush and we're going to mix all this fun stuff together. Now if I've mixed the right quantity, I'll get a decent color that I want to use. So that's more green than I actually want. I want it to be more of a chartreuse, so we've got that right there. That's definitely too much green. So we're going to take some of that mix. And maybe not quite chartreuse, but we want it to be much lighter green. So we're going to add a couple of drops of our yellow. I have used tube watercolors. I have used half pans. I tend to stick with these bottles of concentrated color only because I feel that they've been the most versatile for me in terms of, you know, really painting the way I want to. I won't end up having to deal with, you know, kind of the shiny blobs of paint that tend to be on from using the tubes. I mean, I like the tubes, don't get me wrong, but... Alright, so I think that is going to be the green I want. So what I've got here, I'll show you. That right there is the green I want. And using the half pans, I don't know, never really took for me. They were great, but the pans always got kind of messy, and a lot of times I am that kind of artist where I'm really finicky about what's happening with my tools and my materials. It's one of the reasons why I don't really use oils that much. They get very messy. So when putting on color, I say go as lightly as possible. You know, find the color you want and, you know, put it on there. And just realize where that's going to be in relation to everything else. As far as value, I mean. You're either going to go lighter or you're going to go darker. For watercolors especially, a lot of times you're just going darker because there's no way to really lighten watercolor unless you're taking a, let's say maybe a cotton swab and, you know, really going at it with that space with some water and then wiping that up immediately. And that turns into a nightmare. Let me just say that first of all. So for me, it's always, okay, let's find the color that I want and just understand I'm going darker. Just to get all the value in. Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things I love about using marker as well. And I do have my eye on some new drawing markers that I can't wait to actually get. I've got them on my wish list. And I can't wait to get them, but I just want to make sure I can actually use them for a really great project. You know, obviously I'll play around with them, but, you know. But I've done markers before, and they've always been really good for me. And yes, just going on them with another layer. Really? It's intimidating. Oh, wow. You know, because I use watercolors all the time, I've had a few people tell me, you know, a few people ask me, like, how do I do this with them? Because they never behave the way you want them to. And for me, I just kind of look at it and say, you know what? Just let them do what they're going to do. That has often been the way that I've gotten around the issue with watercolors just literally doing their own thing. I go into it knowing that it's going to do its own thing. It's going to behave in its own way. But the really great thing about watercolor is also the paper that you're using. That paper will actually absorb some of that water, so you never really want to just oversaturate your brush or your areas with color unless that's the look you're going for. I look at watercolors as just kind of almost literally painting with a marker in a lot of ways. Because I can get the color that I want, and it's just it'll be its own thing. And it'll take on its own qualities based on how much water is really on your brush and how much is going into that paper. But I have always loved using watercolors. Okay, so I like that. And I think I am going to go, he's going to be wearing a gray sweater, so let me find my black here. And I'm going to use this black for both his light gray sweater and his dark gray pants. So I'm going to want to mix up at least a decent amount of this color that I want to use. So we're going to go right in there. There we go. And some water down in there, maybe a little more water than that. So you see that right there, that is probably where I want his pants to be, but it's definitely not where I want that sweater to be. But since I have that there, we're going to use that. Honestly, your teacher and I have the same philosophy when it comes to watercolor. I absolutely do say just dive on in, just go for it. A lot of times, and what Necbro is saying is, you know, you can really turn those mistakes into something really fantastic. But a lot of times those mistakes they're not really, you know, as costly as you think, because you can always turn those into some really great piece. Some really great elements, some really great design choices. You can always play around with that. I would use a bigger brush for this, but I'm kind of all in at the moment. Now, oftentimes what I've done in the past is I have gone in with a wash first. Just to actually put something down in the background and just wash over everything with that. So I have some type of splash of color going on in the background. I don't think I'm going to do that with this today. Yeah, he's a handsome dude. I like him. I like him a lot. I think the hardest part is going to be deciding what color his belt is supposed to be. Honestly, for all intents and purposes, I could just leave his belt white. And just say, well, he's wearing a white belt and white shoes. He can totally wear that. And this is what I mean about when it comes to deciding your color for your characters. It comes down to, what are your people wearing? Like, how are they wearing it? What are they, you know, what's their signature? And it tends to be a lot of fun. Just making those decisions. And, you know, honestly, I think that would definitely work. White belt and white shoes, absolutely. So what I want to do is, now, this guy, he needs a lighter gray than that. And it's obviously going to be very light. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this mixed up gray that I've got from his pants, and I'm going to get some of that into its own little pan. And I want to see what that looks like. Because we're gonna use that mixed color as the base for a new color. This is one of the things I really, really love about painting, is that you can do that, especially when it comes to watercolors. And then we're going to thin that down with some water. And this is going to be the gray that we've got. I'm painting it right there. Just go right on in there. Oh, but you gotta experiment. You gotta get out of that. I definitely recommend. You know what? If you really, really want to try some new things with your art, just make a piece that, and I don't say that you're not really invested in, but create a piece simply for you to experiment with. Something that you can get to a really great stopping point with it, but you also understand that this piece is one you're going to wreck. You're going to mess up. You're going to do so many things to it. And just allow yourself that permission. Give yourself permission to do that and to make those mistakes with that piece. So that you can really get to know your media well and play around with different ideas and different ways of doing things. That way, it'll keep you safe from having to try to experiment with something that you feel really, really serious about. But also, it gets you really playing around with expanding and broadening your abilities and your skills. Exactly, it really can just be shapes. One of the great things I learned when I was in art school was that when it came to using new media, learning how to use oil paints, we did just draw shapes so we could see how we're supposed to mix the paints properly, how we can add value where all that was supposed to be. I highly recommend you just work with something like that if you don't want to go full in on a piece that you're going to feel really serious about. Okay, so that is that. All right, so my guy here, I think I want him in a blue shirt. Now, last week, for a piece that I was working on for something else, I knew I had a color in mind for his shirt, but I think I want something that's just going to be a little more vibrant. And we'll probably put him in maybe some blue jeans and sneakers. I think that'll work. So I do need my blue. So let me get that. Absolutely, Neck is right. He is absolutely right. And as we were just talking about ways you can, hold on to your original pieces so that you can go ahead and feel free to wreck them, scan them in so you can print them up, make copies of them, and you'll always have that original that you're obviously not going to touch, but you still have that opportunity to experiment with that piece so you can do those great things with it. So we're going to mix up a whole lot of blue here. So we'll put that there, but I want some of this blue mixed with some green. Mostly because what I want to do, I want to make that color again that I use, which is kind of like an aqua. But I needed to read a little more bluer than what it did last time I made this. If you're going to look into different kinds of paper, especially if you want to play around with things, I do recommend there are lighter weight papers that you can use that are kind of mixed media paper. So let me give you an example. Pull this out. So when I'm drawing my comics, this is what I put all my paper on. So it is 80-pound paper, so it's actually pretty light. So I can do all the things that I want to do to it. So it's got a very nice texture, a very smooth texture rather, very lightweight paper, so easily folded, and you can print on it. So if you had a, a decent sized printer, or even just a regular printer, you can get the right size paper, and you can use that to print out your pieces on, and then you can turn those printouts into the color studies that you're going to be doing, your experiments with that. So I do recommend that. Absolutely. That's a great thing to do. Alright, there we go. I think I got the color that I want. Almost. I want a little more blue in there. And I'll show you this color in a moment. Another thing I really like about using... oh, that's perfect. Another thing that I really like about using the bottles of color here that I've got is more of an ability to measure how much paint I'm using. So I know how many drops it takes me to make this particular color, or how many drops it takes to make that particular color. So I'm never, kind of just winging it whenever I need to mix up a color again. I know how much of that I've used originally. Okay, there we go. I like that one. So this right here is the blue I'm going to use. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we're going to get in here. So he's wearing some pretty light colors. That light gray, and now we've got this light blue going in there. Now here's the thing. When I started using watercolors for the first time, whenever my colors came out that washed out and that pale, I always thought, oh no, I need to darken this up so I can have more differentiation. And then when I started adding my complementary colors, or, putting in my shadows, I realized now everything is way too dark. I've learned to relax and just say, you know what, that's exactly how that needs to be. I've already decided that this is the blue that I want for his shirt. This actually is that color that I want. This is, in fact, the gray that I want for his sweater. That is the color that I want. Because what's going to happen is when I go in to do their shadows, all that's going to be plucked out anyway. Like, I'm going to use another layer of these same colors to get those shadows in there. I don't need to go darker than that, because that value is going to show. So we can just leave that as is, and it's fine. The next thing we need to do is his pants. So he's wearing blue jeans, so what we're going to do is we're just going to mix up a whole lot of some blue here. I always go crazy in my blue, but that's mostly because I do use blue a lot when I'm putting in shadows. So in addition to, as I was saying earlier, in addition to like doing a full wash, what I've also done is I'll put my background, like I'll lay down as my basic colors. In the world am I trying to say? I will lay down in over the whole piece, getting in the shadows. So I'll do the areas that are supposed to be darker than others with varying shades of blue. And when I can go over that, after that blue has completely dried, then I can say, okay, now I can go in and add on the other colors that thing is supposed to be. So it could be some brown, and with that brown in there, with that brown on top, layered on top of that blue, it gives it a different feel. So the brown is definitely there on top, but now has this deeper quality to it because it's got that blue in the shadow. Thank you, Fanciful. And honestly, I'm going to tell you right now, your questions are not dumb because honestly, this is how you learn how to paint. You experiment, you play around with things, and I have no problem sharing my techniques with other people who find them helpful. So absolutely, this piece is already turning out the way I like it. So I can't wait to really show it off on my Facebook page and elsewhere. So I will put this up around. And it's definitely coming along really nicely. Speaking of brown, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do with the ground that they're walking on. Actually, you know what? While we're here, while I'm looking at it, my guy's shoes down here, I want them in a green. Not the same green as that. But I do want them to be green. They will actually look very similar to that, though. Okay, so now, speaking of brown, I want to do something with the ground that they're walking on. There it is. And making that a simple brown is going to do everything I needed to do. So, whenever I just need like a basic color of something unmixed, I'll usually just do about 3 drops of the color that I want, and then always at least a dropper full of water. This is me telling you my formula. Always at least a dropper full of water so that I can at least wet the paint enough so that it becomes more fluid for what I need it to be. And we're just going to get right on in there. What is that? I've never heard of that. The thin your paints meme. You're gonna have to, yeah, link that to me so I can see what you're talking about, because that sounds intense, and I might be interested. Okay, we can just do that. Now, obviously, you don't necessarily want to just kind of keep it that way. So what I'm going to do, so you can kind of see where the brush strokes are. So we're going to take a broader brush like this guy here and go right on in there and just do something like that. Just to help smooth all of that out. Perfect. Oh, oh wow, that's intense. Yeah, you know, we all have to learn somehow. We all have to learn somehow. So we need to get these people to not look like pale, pasty vampires. So I need to put some color on their skin as well. What I want to do first... This pale look is not working for me. I want to do this for the bottom of his shoes. Just to kind of get him with some kind of color there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Well, good to know. Good to know. You know, I was wondering when that was coming out. So, Bloodlines 2 out now. I think I may have added that to my Steam wish list or something, or I was looking at it. It looks good. It looks good. So, for these people here, how do I want to do this? You know what? I think I have... So there's a couple of different ways that I can go about this. I can go with my once upon a time original skin color pattern or mix that I had for them, which was mostly just an overall black, and then I could tone it up with some brown. Some brown mix. Or I can just go straight to the brown mix. Not entirely sure how I want to do that right yet. You know what? Let's just go for it. We're gonna go with the black base and the brown mix. I think that will be the thing. So what I need to do is make sure that I'm... You know what? I've got some gray here that I'll use. I will just add a little more black to it. Just to help tone it up to where I need it to be. I'll bring that up that way. Because obviously these are fantasy characters in a fantasy setting, so I can make them any color I want. But we're going to want them... Oh yeah, that's perfect. We're going to go with that right there. Once upon a time, when I originally created all of these characters, yes, they were black-skinned, as in their skin was black. Think Dark Elf Drow black. Matter of fact, for so many of them, they were almost blue in tone. And I will even do that with their hair, just in the untouched negative spaces here. Now, when it comes to mixing skin tones in watercolors, what I always do is I will go with, depending on the character and what they actually do look like, both of these characters are kind of dark. That's exactly what I need them to be, like in general. I'm going to mix up a decent amount of this because I want to be able to glaze this in here. So, I start off with purple. It's about 4 drops purple. And then, to add a little warmer quality to it, orange. Mix all of that in together. And if I need to tone it down or up, I can just go in with one of those other complementary colors. So if I need to lighten this mix up, then I will add yellow. If I need to make it a little more warmer, give them a little more of a red tone, then I will just go with a straight red. And obviously if I need to make them even more darker, then I will just go back to the purple. Don't really need to do that with these guys here. But purple and orange do make a pretty nice skin tone color that I like to use on occasion. So, and if and only if I really need to turn it down, then I'm going to go and add brown to it. Like if I really needed to just kind of be a little more mellow than what it is. So I need them darker because that's starting to head into some weird territory there. We're going to add more purple. Or violet, as the bottle says. It's violet. And what this is going to be, I'm going to glaze over where I've made their skin. There we go. Now, why do I do this instead of just using a brown? Because brown is just brown. Whereas if you mix your own skin tone, you can change the quality. You can change the temperature. You can change a whole lot of textural, visual elementing about it. So you have more control over what that skin tone will actually look like in the end, as opposed to just going with a straight out of the bottle tube of color or drop of color, whatever it is you're using. This is something I've learned from art school. And we will just go right over it. Now, the reason why I start off with a base of that black, which is basically gray, the way it looks right now, is because their skin is actually that color. What's happening when I add the brown is that it's giving it a little more vibrancy. It's warming it up, which is also a quality of their skin tone. So their skin is a base of that black. This brown adds, like I said, it adds some vibrancy to what's going on with them. Now, in the past, again, when I've drawn these characters, they've just been black, so this is kind of what I stuck with them. But you know what? See? It looks so much better. Got some actual really great tonal quality with their skin tone. And that's really the point. That was the point the whole time. Alright, so next, now that we've got their skin tone in, we can go back to putting in the deeper portions of their clothing. So I'm just going to move my paints out of the way so that, of course, I don't knock anything over as I move the table and threaten to topple over my water here. Let me kind of reset my workspace so I can know what I'm doing. All right. Ooh boy, this is probably one of the longest streams I've ever done. 3 hours already? Wow. Okay. So we want to put in our necessary color details. So I'm going with a different brush. Actually, move this water a little closer. I have to be all the way over there. And let's just start with my green. So we're going to go right up in here. And what this does is it gives it a little more color intensity right up in there. It's that second layer, so we start off with this in a lot of the areas that would normally be in shadow, because we're going to build off of that. And because everything already has its basic color in it, we can just do exactly how we're doing. We're just gonna wash it in these colors here. Just zigzag here and there, and then just, that's it. There we go. Next, let's find our grays that we used for their pants and the sweater. We're going to do the same thing. Oh, you know what? I'm starting with the wrong gray here. We want the lighter gray first and get right into that sweater. Just a couple steps away there, so... You probably can't see what's happening, but it's really having a great effect with the light of this piece. That's that. And what's going to happen is you're going to see in his gray here, because I had used this gray to draw their skin tone originally. Now normally, I will say, if I really want to get a dark skin tone, just as a normal skin tone, I would just use a blue or purple. I wouldn't go directly for a black, but because I wanted that glaze on there, that's why that looks that way now. So we'll go right up to that crease. we can take this gray and go right into some of these areas here on his sweater. Up in there. Okay. We're going to go into some blue. These blue jeans. We're going to, this whole leg right here is behind him, so it'll be back there and that. This is usually why I mix up so much of a particular color, because I know what I'm going to be doing with it later. And we need to get into him again with his shirt, and I've got the right blue mixed up for that as well. Just gonna do something like that. Next thing, we need to go back, and so we've added in that intense color for that green there, but we want to really put some shadows in there now, so we're going to go ahead and do that. I've got a darker green mixed up that we're going to work with. And when I'm doing this, I try to make sure that my pulling of the color matches where the wrinkles are and the different fold lines of the clothing, so that it looks more natural that way. And I'm usually pretty spot on. Had a couple little wrong places to put that stuff, but here we go. Let's go back into territory of the blue. And I'm going to use a different blue. This blue that I'm putting on has a little bit of green mixed in with it. Get some brown in here. We're gonna go over that there with that shoe. Actually, I'm gonna do this instead. There we go. All right, perfect. We'll use blue as our shadow. Alright, so now what is missing here out of this piece? What I want to do is I'm going to go over their skin tone again with another layer of my gray. And this will be our final glaze over that. Ah, there we go. You know what's funny? Not more than maybe 20-30 minutes ago, I said I was going to make a copy of this in case I wanted to come back to it. That did not happen. I went right for the colors. So, it's okay, because here we are. This doesn't need any more study and work done on it. So, maybe for something else. I know, that's funny, because I said that and then I never did it, so we're okay. We are okay. What do I want to do next? Oh, you know what? I know exactly what I want to do next. Now that we've gotten our shadows and things going on, oh, that looks good. just adding that extra layer. Top of them. Honestly, I am really, really happy with this. I'm very content with the way this looks. So content that I'm intent to call it here. I just want to do one extra thing. Some yellow going right there. Well, maybe a couple of extra things, but first... There, that needs to be that. And my poor guy doesn't have any pupils. You need to draw those in. I think there was something strange about his eyes, when really, no, I just didn't draw pupils. Let's go ahead and do that. And they don't have to be a whole... There we go. All right, I'm there. Last thing it needs is a signature. And for that, I'll go with my trusty Pilot G7 pen. And we go in after I do this to this. Right here. We'll go down here. I put it way down there. I like that way down there. So that's it. That is the whole piece, start to finish. If I do anything else to it, it'll probably be off camera, so I wouldn't worry about it. This is as finished as it's going to be on camera. So absolutely thank you to everyone who came by to hang out. Neck Bro, thank you so much. Always the best. Seeing you floating around, especially my chat. Everyone else who stopped in, we had really great conversation. Fancy. You know, I wish you the best with your work as you're, you know, going to take that up and you're really going to do some great things. T-Con, thanks for stopping in. I hope you do come back. For everyone else, thank you for tuning in. I will see you next week. Again, I do stream every Saturday at 1 p.m. So unless something else is going on. And I did mention earlier that my schedule will likely change. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I will absolutely let you know. I will share that in my Twitter and on my Facebook page. You can find that Celestian IOF on Twitter, and then Illustrator of Fantasies on Facebook. Come hang out. Come see the things that I'm posting up there. We're going to be getting into a lot new fun stuff. So with that, I will see you all next week. Take care.